1069.
Welcome to Thursday morning on the Stansbury Show. We're on Rock 1069, online at WRQK.com. Social media-wise, that's the Stansbury Show. Pick your favorite platform, TikTok while we still have it, and follow along there. You can also text the studio at 330-450-7625. That number you could call as well. Toll-free option to call is 800-243-7625. We got a lot to get to today, including we are now seeing influencers online begging for more subscriptions. I have a piece of audio here from a woman. We'll run this down at 9 a.m. But she's complaining about her fans who watch her every day. She thinks it's inappropriate that people are watching her every day and not paying to sub to her channel. And I would say to her, welcome to being a radio host, right? So welcome to that. But she doesn't have a corporation that pays her, right? Because everybody thought the algorithm was going to lead you to the land of milk and honey. Turns out no. She's flat broke. She's kind of tired of pushing out the content, and she's starting to yell at the audience about not spending the money. I think we all know that ain't going to work well, right? Like, that is not going to go well. It's not the audience's fault. So we'll get there. We'll give you that audio coming up 9 a.m. There is more Aaron Rodgers news today than you can almost shake a stick at, to use a phrase I probably shouldn't have. But, like, this guy, we found out, apparently had been in Costa Rica on another one of his ayahuasca retreats when the news that RFK Jr. may be interested in using Aaron Rodgers as a running mate for his ticket, for his bid to be the president of this country. Also now, CNN is coming out with some stories about Aaron Rodgers that date back to 2013. A lot of people are suspicious these are hit pieces out of fear that RFK could challenge Joe Biden in this next coming election. I don't see it that way. Not that CNN's not going to make up stuff about Aaron Rodgers. I wouldn't put that past them. I don't think it's going to be motivated from they think RFK is going to challenge Joe Biden all that much. I don't see it that way. I think we all know this race is coming down to the two people we all know it's going to come down to. Every time, and I want to vote a third-party candidate. I do. As a matter of fact, in the last presidential election, I did. Joe Jurgens is who I voted for. I know I wasted my vote, right? Yeah, other than, I guess, than people voting for the same two people for the last 50 years and everything stays exactly the same. If that's not wasting my vote, then I don't think what I did is wasting my vote either. I'm sorry, I don't see it that way. But I don't really see RFK Jr. as a viable presidential candidate in this election. I really don't. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers pushes you over the finish line. We talked about this a little bit yesterday on the program, too. And I said, look, if you're angry with Taylor Swift for telling people to vote for Joe Biden and you're in love with Aaron Rodgers being on an RFK ticket, like, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing the math add up there. That doesn't track. As the kids would say, that doesn't track. Doesn't track. Right? And I don't see that. Right? But Aaron Rodgers now, there are a few hit pieces about this guy. And I always say, you're not judged in the moment, you're judged by who you were leading up to the moment. And so there was a moment, meaning it got announced that Aaron Rodgers could be a vice presidential candidate, or at least on the ticket for RFK. And so now here come these stories about Aaron Rodgers from CNN that are easy to believe because of who he has shown us he is while being on interviews with Pat McAfee and Joe Rogan and some other places. And I'm all for him saying whatever he wants. But my guess is he's going to come out and deny some of these stories from CNN, and I don't think people are going to believe him because it tracks along with some other things he said. We'll get to Aaron Rodgers. We'll get there coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. Also going to have to take a look at a local school gun issue that happened yesterday. Got some news on that. I believe there was an update overnight as well, so we'll make sure you get that information. We'll do that coming up at 8 o'clock. The big story today at 7 is what? Joe Flacco. Has to be. I was saying this the other day at the other radio station because that one's based in Cleveland. I said, the Browns are topic A. I don't care what month it is. They're just they are topic A. That's just kind of how it works. We're a football-obsessed area. And so now the Indianapolis Colts, if anybody doesn't know, is going to sign Joe Flacco to an $8.7 million deal, $4.5 million guaranteed. That seems high for Joe Flacco. I think there's a lot of recency bias. He played pretty well and all of this. I think this is what you got to remember. Do the Indianapolis Colts have the roster that the Cleveland Browns do? My guess is no. I have not yet looked up and down it. I will take some time. We will do that. But there's no Myles Garrett in Indianapolis. There's no Za'Darius Smith there. Like, by the way, there might not be a Kevin Stefanski there. Right? There might not be a Jim Schwartz there. A lot of stuff goes into, like, and I'm guilty of this, but, like, the world talks quarterbacks. And so it comes down to, it's like they win alone. Like the Jordan thing. It's like, no, he didn't. Jordan himself will tell you, Scottie Pippen's the best teammate I ever had because I never won without it. Right? These are team games. They are team efforts in all of this. And I think what the Colts are saying here is we don't know whether or not Anthony Richardson, their quarterback that they drafted, we don't know if he's going to be healthy. He seems to be one of those guys, a lot like Deshaun Watson, where it's like there could be some injury issues with Anthony Richardson. Let's make sure we have a solid backup. They didn't have one. And they didn't want to get caught the way the Browns did last year if they have an injury at the position. Plus, Anthony Richardson, young guy. I think it's going to be his second year in the league. So go get a vet. And Joe's kind of shown you. He can kind of put his arm around the young kid and kind of show him what to do and kind of, make sure he's paying attention in the meeting rooms and all of that. You're getting an absolute pro in Joe Flacco. I love the player, but at $5 million guaranteed, I'm sorry, I don't love him at that point. My guess is that's why the Browns did not give him an offer. This is speculation now. But what I'm guessing is people kind of know what's going to happen. The rumors go around, you know what I mean? There's the whispers in the hallway and all of that. And Andrew Beery knew where the number was going to be for Joe Flacco. So instead of embarrassing Joe Flacco and themselves by putting out a number they thought they were going to be able to live with and losing the guy anyway, just don't make the offer. I know it doesn't really sell you on the PR end of it, you know what I mean? But I think they thought, we're not in the business here. We're not going to be able to compete with the number he's going to get on the open market. This is why so many players end up not being with their team. Because it's not just about a guy. You're trying to figure out how does the guy and how does the money and how does all this stuff fit into everything else we're doing. And so that's why you'll see your favorite point guard, dude, he's going to leave. And this guy's going there and this guy going there because people are trying to do what's best for the team. Is this what's best for the Cleveland Browns? We shall see. We shall see. But do I understand them not looking at Joe Flacco as a $5 million guaranteed guy? Yeah, I think I understand that evaluation, yes.
To all the teachers who said he'd never amount to anything.
That is correct.
Lucky guess. The Stansberry Show on Rock 106.9.
Welcome back to the Stansberry Show. 9 a.m. Why Twitch streamers are now begging for subscriptions. Turns out online influencing is a little more difficult than people would have thought. I mean, I know you can buy the starter kit. Why wouldn't there be? You know what I mean? Absolutely, why wouldn't there be? But a little harder than people think, apparently. So some Twitch streamers, one in particular, upset. We'll give you her audio, 9 a.m. You know a piece of audio I gave you yesterday that people did not like. Man, did you guys not like this?
And let's be real about this. It's insane that we haven't raised the retirement age in the United States. It's totally crazy. Joe Biden, if that were the case, Joe Biden should not be running for president.
Okay, so this is Ben Shapiro, for anybody that doesn't know. And he, for anybody that doesn't know, he does not like the current president, Joe Biden, at all. And so he's starting to talk about the retirement age, and now he's leaning on Joe Biden's age as a reason. It's like, you guys are all going to complain about raising the retirement age, and yet you want to vote for this man as president.
Joe Biden, if that were the case, Joe Biden should not be running for president. Hey, Joe Biden is 81 years old.
Hey, settle down. It'll be okay. You're going to be fine.
The retirement age in the United States, at which you start to receive Social Security and you are eligible for Medicare, is 65. Joe Biden has technically been eligible for Social Security and Medicare for 16 years.
Okay, Ben, but the problem is that you're out here arguing for raising the retirement age, and now you're pissed because the president is doing what you're asking other people to do. By the way, the guy you want to vote for, I think, is 3 years younger. Like, let's not pretend it's 15 years. You know what I mean? Like that.
And he wants to continue in office until he is 86, which is 19 years.
I think 86 is a little long for the president for me. For my liking, I don't know if I love that. And by that, I mean I don't love that.
Past when he would be eligible for retirement. No one in the United States should be retiring at 65 years old.
Okay. Once you make it a definitive statement is where we have a problem, in my view. There are plenty of people who have worked jobs that have destroyed their bodies, destroyed maybe their organs, depending on what you're breathing in, what you're around, right? There's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of jobs out there, right? That I believe, retiring at 65, right? Are there jobs where it's like, dude, why are you going to retire at 65 from that, right? Like, you're going to want to stay active. You're going to want to keep your brain engaged. It's the definitive statement that nobody should be doing it is where I'll draw a line and be like, I don't know if I love that statement.
Frankly, I think retirement itself is a stupid idea unless you have some sort of health problem. Everybody that I know who is elderly, who has retired, is dead within 5 years.
So everybody you knew then, not know? I know, I'm being that guy. Emotionally making an argument and misspeaking, I know all about it.
And if you talk to people who are elderly and they lose their purpose in life by losing their job and they stop working.
Okay, but this is where I kept saying this a little bit yesterday. Why is my job the only place in where I'm getting purpose in my life? Why is that the mentality? I think he's exposing American hustle culture here a little bit, whether he wants to be doing that or not. And I am a person who for too long in his life was solely defined by what he did for a living. And so many people told me, man, you better get that turned around because you're going to regret it one day. And here's what's interesting about it. I did get it turned around. And I didn't have to live long enough to where I actually regret it. I got it turned around, and now I have the job, I have the other thing, and I have it all. And not at all, but I have plenty. And I can see myself in that zone of, oh, thank God I didn't get to the point where I really regret it. There was times I was regretting it along the way, and I was in denial about that. Okay, fair, but like I saved it with enough time on the game clock for me to get enough out of my life, right? And I'm thankful for that. I don't really like the idea that work is solely your boat. I think loving what you do can be a path to happiness. I think it's going to be a small number of people that end up doing what they love to do. Some people realize, man, I'm just in it for the money. I just need to make sure my kids have decent schools and can go to college and braces and this and that. I'm not necessarily going to like drive myself crazy with the job. I'm looking for a little bit different of a life, and that's fine. I know people who make $350,000 a year, live in $2 million homes. They cannot stand their lives. And I know people who make $35,000 a year. They have zero clue how they're going to make the payments next month, and they're happy. They're happy. It does come down to you. I think if you have lived long enough to the point to where you can retire at 65 and you're worried that your sole purpose in life is gone, I think you failed a little bit. By the time you're 65, you should have other purposes, whether it be kids, family, wife, whatever it is, you should find another purpose. I agree that retiring at 65, never leaving the house ever again and going to bed every night at 5:30, I think you will wither away like that. I won't disagree with that.
Things go to hell in a handbasket real quick. But put all of that aside, just on a fiscal level and on a logical level. When Franklin Delano Roosevelt established 65 as the retirement age, the average life expectancy in the United States was 63 years old.
You think that helps your argument? Hey man, this is how bad it used to be. Most people were retiring at 63, so retirement's 65. Does he think that was a win right there? Because let me tell you, that did not sound like a win at all.
Today, the average life expectancy in the United States is close to 80.
Okay, now this is what I said yesterday. I was like, okay, so if modern medicine is allowing us to live longer and better longer too, that part's important because we are, is there no way whatsoever, or there's no reason rather, to have a conversation about raising the retirement age, if that's true? Like, we really think it's egregious to maybe even ask the question if the average age of living is increasing. Like, at some point, that's going to force uncomfortable conversations in other areas of life, including retirement.
It's totally insane that you believe that you should be able to work from the time that you are essentially 20 to the time that you are 65, which is a 45-year period.
All right, a lot of you were working at 15. I was, like, right? So, like, we can round up to 20. We can say this, okay?
Pay in. And then you will receive Social Security benefits sufficient to support you and your family.
Well, guys, is Social Security still going to support me and my family by the time I'm 60? Like, I bet not, right? I bet not.
You and your wife or whatever, for like another 20 years. That's crazy talk.
Well, is that crazy talk? I kept thinking about that yesterday after the show was over. So if you told me the system works like this, you pay in twice as long as you get to pull out, the first thing I would say is America. That sounds like the beginning. That, as a matter of fact, I would have bet that's what the system was. Absolutely, that's what I would have bet that was. So I don't know if that part's so crazy. I do have average retirement by age, by country, and what their retirement ages are. I think people are going to be surprised about what some of these ages around the world are. So we'll take a look at that next on Rock 106.9.
It's cool when you get up and you feel instantly connected to the world.
The Stansberry Show.
I don't know what it is. I got them on every morning.
On Rock 106.9.
Welcome back to the Stansberry Show, Rock 106.9. We'll take a look at Joe Flacco's move to Indy. We'll do that next hour. What we had been talking about is this piece of audio that went viral from Ben Shapiro. He's kind of talking about how this country might have to get to the point where we're going to have to talk about the retirement age. He's making the point. Now, he said it in a much harsher fashion than that. He said, nobody should be retiring at 65. I isolated a piece of this audio because I took a comment from one of you guys at the Facebook page, The Stansberry Show, on this part of this audio, and I thought it was a good point.
No one in the United States should be retiring at 65 years old. Frankly, I think retirement itself is a stupid idea unless you have some sort of health problem. Everybody that I know who is elderly, who has retired, is dead within 5 years.
Okay, so he then, later in that audio, says, so you think you should be able to work from 20 to 65 and then have your unemployment or your retirement, fund, Social Security pay you for 20 some years. And I kept making the point of I gotta tell you, that sounds like America to me. Pay in twice as long as I get to pull out. That sounds like America to me. Now, Bo brought up an excellent point in this. He did. I wrote him right back. He writes in a lot. I said, dude, this is your best take ever. This is not that he's got bad takes usually. It's just this one might be this is an all-timer. He says, everybody he knows dies within 5 years of being retired, then what does it matter if you're allowed to pull out the retirement fund for 20 years? I mean, kind of checkmated Ben Shapiro right there, didn't he? I mean, he kind of did. And I'm not out to jump up and down on Ben. I don't hate him the way some other people do, but much like myself, you can have some good ideas, you can have some bad ones, right? And we talked about this a little bit, more at length yesterday when we were having the conversation about it. But, people are pushing back on him going, this is easy to say when you talk into a microphone and a camera for a living. Get out there and work and tell me what you think. And they're not necessarily wrong. I've told you this before about Hollywood actors too. It can work in that way too, where it's there's a reason why they think everything should just be given away. And it's because they make a lot of money to do a job that's not hard, and they go home to their mansions and they feel guilty about it. I know. I have felt plenty guilty throughout my life about the fact that this job's not necessarily hard, and it pays a little bit better than some jobs that should pay way more than that. Way more. I have felt plenty of guilt over the years on that. Plenty. As a matter of fact, I always say when I'm working, I'm way more dude, yeah, I give everybody money. When I'm out of work and I don't have anything, that's when I'm everybody should work hard and get tight-fisted, because that's what I'm going to do to try to make, you know what I mean? But once I'm back working, I'm dude, start passing it around a little bit. Because I feel guilty. I do. I shouldn't. I'm underpaid and still paid well enough, right? And so it's kind of one of those things. I think he's a little nuts here. I think that's a little crazy. And I can't imagine more people are going to be in love with the idea of working longer. I did find this. They have charted retirement age by country. I've got a couple of different forms here. The retirement age at which you can retire without, penalty to your benefit package. And then they have it broken down by men versus women when they're actually doing it. Okay. A lot of countries are at 65. Israel, Japan, South Korea, all. South Korea is 62. You can retire without penalty, but women are retiring at about 65 years of age there, men about 66. Now, China, you can retire at 60, no penalty. Now, you get to India and Indonesia, it's 58, 57. Saudi Arabia, I'm told, is 47. That seems pretty young, honestly. Switzerland is 65. Most of these countries are 65, by the way. Germany, Switzerland, Poland, Hungary, Austria, Spain, Belgium, Latvia, Estonia. What's Italy there? 62 is Italy. Women are retiring about a year earlier than that. Men right on the dot at 62. United States, obviously, we know, is about 65. Men are working until about 66. Although they say here, actually, no, they say America's actually listed at 66 years old, not 65. Again, let me pull down and see where they tell me the methodology in this, and I'm trying to scroll down. I should have written this down about who compiled this information for them. And I wanted to be able to give you that. I'm sorry, I should have written that down. I'm scrolling and trying to do this live. That's terrible radio. Chile, Argentina, Colombia, all about 65 there as well. But again, most people are working about a year and a half more than that. So, I wanted to talk about that a little bit because when these subjects come up, everybody talks about how unfair situations can be. And it's like, well, yeah, I won't disagree. And America's not perfect, but when you look up and down here, it seems like we're pretty much lockstep in with most of the other developed nations around the world, right? And that developed part's important because that's where the jobs are going to be. And so I don't think our system's necessarily crazy. But Ben, I don't think has a terrible point either, though. Like, if we continue, like, how long is it going to be before you can be 90 and not be the 90-year-old from when we were growing up, right? Like, it won't be that long, right? Modern medicine's going to get us there, I would think. Now, another point that makes his side of this argument a little crazy is, so every article I read is AI is going to take 65% of jobs inside of 15 years. And again, that was Business Insider. 65% of jobs in 15 years. And yet we think people are going to need to be working longer. If anything, I think we're on a collision course with UBI. For anybody that doesn't know, Universal Basic Income. And I floated this idea yesterday. Anytime these, financial relief package ideas start coming out, everybody starts talking about giving it to the younger people. It's like, no, dude, what are we doing? We're an ageist society that pushes people out of the way at 60. If we're going to do UBI, give it to them, and then let's see how that works. I've always been curious about this because Ben's making the point, dude, if you retire, you just wither, and I would agree that could happen. That if you don't find purpose and you're just sitting in there watching The Price is Right, you probably will die faster, right? Much like if you're 40 and you never exercise at all and all you do is lay on the couch, you're going to die, by and large, earlier than people who don't do that. So I don't think that's crazy. So sometimes I'll see older people, like the greeter at like a big box store, right? Retail. Like a greeter there. Or you'll see an elderly person working fast food. And immediately, because we're it's awful. We have to let everybody in here because it's amazing here. But it's awful for you. Amazing for them. Awful for you. Right? And it's kind of, we kind of do that. So when I see an older person working, my brain automatically goes to sad. Like, oh man, that sucks for you that you have to do that. But I wonder, there's going to be those people for sure. How many of them are, I'm just trying not to wither? Like, I did my job. I'm not trying to earn a living here. I'm trying to have a reason to get up and lace the shoes every day. Because I always talk about that. Like, I don't really want to be a greeter when I'm 70, and I don't. Like, I really don't. But when I'm 70, would I have a different view of it of like, well, dude, I'm just trying to get out of the house. I made my money. I can pay my bills. I always jump to, if they don't do that, they're going to be alone in the street. And I think those people do exist too, but it's like, how many of those people are just trying to avoid dying 10 years before they should because they're just trying to stay active? I think it could be a large, very large number of people that is true of. But I won't deny, like, if you don't do anything and you just sit in the house, don't leave. I know everybody that's became the virtuous thing to do in COVID, but like, it will rob years off of your life. There's no denying that.
You know what that conniving trickery is called?
The Stansberry Show on Rock 106.9.
CNN's coming after Aaron Rodgers after hearing that RFK may want to put him on the ticket. I've been talking about retirement. Ben Shapiro kind of went viral the other day for saying, the retirement age at 65 is crazy. Nobody should retire at 65. He said he's making the argument that, working, 40 years and then pulling out money for free, not free, but pulling out money for 20 is ludicrous. And I was like, that actually sounds like America. Twice as long and I get half. Like, that's it kind of sounds like, dude, America, these colors don't run. It kind of sounds like that to me, right? Now, Bo made a great point. He's like, dude, he's talking about how people die 5 years after they retire if they don't have purpose. And he's like, and then he's still complaining people are going to be on Social Security for 20. He's like, make it make sense. Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point, right? So I was telling you about this chart I saw about retirement ages around the world. And most countries are around 60 to 65. South Africa seems to be 60 is where you can retire without penalty there. I was kind of talking about that a little bit because most countries around the world are, in fact, pretty close to America, if not, maybe even, their retirement age is higher. So that chart was put together by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And I wanted to tell you that because a lot of times people are like, where'd you get that, source that, and all that. So I wanted to, tell you where I got that chart from. And we were talking about this. Jason says, man, he's like, some of those places that you gave out, some of those retirement ages are a little younger than America. He goes, I wonder what the customs are. And he's making the point that in some other areas in the world, it's a little bit more expected that the youth take care of their parents after they get older. And I would agree that there does seem to be some cultures where that's more true. America's very much like, make enough money so you could put them in the nursing home, right? My sister-in-law all the credit I can when this subject comes up. My mom has lived with them since my dad died 20-some years ago, and I'm happy about that. Not because she's not living with me, but because they have given her a better life than I would have been able to, for sure. She also had my niece out there, her granddaughter, for a lot of purpose, and I like that. And I like the fact that she's not in a nursing home. I understand, right? There's reasons to do everything. I'm not on you about it, but I am thankful that my brother was able to step up in that manner. My mom could live with me and I could support us and all of this and all of that. She would not have the life. I mean, my mom drives pretty much a brand new car. You know what I mean? They give her an allowance. Like my mom's living high off the hog out there, right? And it's been over my brother and Roxanne's hard work. And so that makes me thankful because I do believe I've had my mom a lot longer than I would have. I really feel like my mom would have died much sooner after my dad. You hear about that all the time, right? One of them dies and 3 years later. Now, not to bring the entire mood down, my dad would have died within 2 years of my mom dying. I don't care who he lived with. That was going to be the end of it. My brother, when they were both alive, you know how you'll have those conversations. Who do you think's going to go first? Who would you rather go first? Who are you going to live with before one of them dies, right? And like all that. And I remember growing up because my dad was like the loud, boisterous one, opinionated and worked. And although my mom worked 2 jobs. And, it just seemed like it would be him, right? Because he kind of ran the house. And so, and truthfully, now that one of them is gone, no way. My dad would have been a shell of himself if he lost me. Would have just never recovered. It always may sound like I have a lot more respect for my father than my dad, or my mom, sorry. And I learned a lot of life lessons from both. Dean instilled a lot of things into us, for sure he did. But the amount of respect I have gained from my mother after my father passed away can barely be measured. Because it's just not who I thought she was. She's a little bit, my mom's kind of a survivor. We have this, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. My mom and I kind of have that in common. Tim's saying the same thing. He texted this in 330-450-7625. Said, I try very hard every day to find something for my dad to do because if he doesn't do anything, I can see depression and loneliness on his face. Trying to keep him alive, as long as humanly possible. Yeah, and again, that was kind of Ben's point. Is like you kind of, if you take purpose away from people. I worry more about taking jobs and that sort of purpose away from the younger generation, not the older. By the time you're 60, 65, let's say it that way, right? Retirement age, you should have found other purposes in your life. Now, a lot of people didn't, and it took me a lot longer than some of you, right? So, different strokes, different folks, that's all part of this. But by then, you should have figured that out at least. Where taking a job and taking the job market away from a 22-year-old now, dude, that's 60 years of no worth, no value. That I worry more about that, if I'm honest, right? And I think that's why I worry so much about AI and all of this. I worry about what that's going to do to the psyche, the mentality of people. And, people are going to laugh and be like, look at you, the capitalist. But, remember how everybody talked about how miserable they were during COVID because they weren't going outside, they weren't seeing their coworkers, they weren't. The rush hour traffic makes you think it's all terrible, but in the throes of that, people were like, get me to the office. I mean, we were going crazy, right? We were going a little crazy. And I think, I'm getting a little in the weeds now with AI and 22-year-olds versus retirement, but I worry about taking that away from that generation versus, people not having their worth at 65. I had told you this story yesterday. There's a guy named Bob, who I used to see out at the golf course a lot. And Bob could not have been a nicer guy. This is going back now. What was profound, and you've heard this from other people, back after it was a couple of years too late. I got on it early, I stayed on it early, and so my body just goes, this is what we do. He's like, if you don't leave the I don't love it. And I talk quarterbacks right now too, though. The ceiling is literally the moon, right? Let's see, who knows? And sure enough, he came in, and when he played, it was like, oh no, oh my God. dude, this kid might be good, right? Now, wait and play more games, and defensive coordinators get tape, and we'll see, right? But there was a little dynamic there in Anthony Richardson, but there was an injury issue. And so that's why the Colts went out and got Joe Flacco. What they didn't want to do was be the Cleveland Browns from last year, where it's like, oh my God, dude, this is a revolving door. We got injuries, and they wanted to have a, solidified backup on their roster in case Anthony's not healthy. Totally understand it. I think they overpaid for that security. I posted this yesterday and I said, I gotta tell you, man, almost $5 million guaranteed seems high. Now, what did I know I was going to get after I posted that? Don't you think the $230 million guaranteed is more? Right? Everybody's screaming at me. Well, yes. The guaranteed money in Deshaun Watson's contract is not my favorite. I have said forever, I don't like guaranteed contracts in sports. But we got social media now and everybody's screaming, get the bag, poverty franchise, get the bag, poverty. Right? Everybody just screams these phrases over and over again, and you got teams backed into a corner. And we got everybody overpaying for everything. So the guaranteed money in Deshaun's contract, I cannot stand. How much they paid him is dude, quarterback contracts. Wait 2 quarterbacks and your deal looks measured. Right? It looks measured. So people upset about Flacco now going to Indy versus going to be backing up Deshaun Watson. So there's a lot here, right? First, it's about play styles. They had to rip 40 pages out of that playbook to get Joe in there last year because he doesn't do what Deshaun does and vice versa. So they were looking for a backup who has a more similar playing style. So we can kind of keep the offense. I saw a lot of this. We're getting rid of Flacco, man. They're going with Jameis Winston because they got a new offensive coordinator. No. It's Kevin Stefanski's offense. That's what Ken Dorsey's going to be running, is Kevin Stefanski's offense. You know how I know? They didn't announce Ken Dorsey as the play caller immediately. See, because if they were running his offense, that's what they would have done. Oh yeah, look at that. Kind of one of those things. They were looking for a similar play style. Now, yes, Jameis has had his off-the-field issues, as has Deshaun. We talked about that at length yesterday. And I kind of looked down my nose at the NFL meeting. America's built on second chances. We're always right smack dab in the middle. I think $4.5 million guaranteed for the Browns for Joe Flacco seems a little low. Can we admit this? You hate Deshaun Watson. Can we admit that? Now, why do you hate him? The off-the-field issues. That's why I don't push all that. That's why I don't push back on it all that hard. That's at least a decent reason not to like a guy. As a matter of fact, it's a little bit better than a decent reason. I understand it. But you didn't love Flacco. You loved that Deshaun Watson had to sit there and watch another quarterback come in and have success. Because you don't like the fact that the Browns hired Deshaun Watson. You don't care about Deshaun Watson being in the NFL. You don't. He goes to Miami, wherever this, that. It'd be one tweet, I don't like it, but at the end of the day, you'd be like, whatever, it's not my franchise, I don't care. You care about the fact that he's on the Browns roster. Remember when everybody was all up in arms about Joe Mixon? Oh my God, Joe Mixon. By the way, on tape, that was. He mollywopped that woman on tape, dog. Yesterday, I saw 5 teams get called idiotic for not going and getting that kid. How much you want to bet some of those same people were telling the NFL how terrible they were and how they don't love anybody and how they don't care about anybody when Joe Mixon was allowed to enter the NFL? Lot of crossover there. We know that. If Deshaun Watson didn't have the off-the-field issues, and this was just